She was like a younger, ostentatious female boss to me. She was caught in a sudden shower, and I saw her real face. She looks up at me and asks provocatively, "Do you want to see more?" I find myself holding my breath. "Do you want to come to my place?" When she blurted these words out, her response was, "I'm Michael Collins, and this year I turned 28. Please be patient with me while I briefly discuss my upbringing and life's journey." "I have it all from birth." "Oh, that one," would be the admiring response from everyone if I mentioned the name of the company I've worked for. I was born the son of the company's president. My parents adored me without showing any preference, despite the fact that I was the second son. By the time I completed primary school, it had already been settled that my older brother would inherit my father's company. I had to choose my own route then. My parents shared a strong commitment to education. Fortunately, I did better in my studies than the majority of my classmates, so I didn't detest it. About the time I was in high school, I came to the realization that I was inherently smart, perhaps just like my father. A gift I never took for granted despite being born with. I worked hard to live up to my parents' expectations. A part of me thought I was just a little bit superior to my brother. Despite his kindness, I saw him as just another male. His benevolence was the only thing that set him apart. "That's a big deal," my mother observed, but I wasn't happy with my brother, the one who carried all the burdens of our parents and grandparents and was expected to take over the business despite my superior ability. I must have been a prickly, conceited man back then. Now that I think about it, it was awkward. I consider it a youthful mistake. I sincerely hoped that one day my parents would see my brilliance and replace their hair, but that day never materialized. After graduating from university, I wasn't too excited about job seeking because I had such bad intentions. Nevertheless, over 10 companies, including my top pick, sent me job offers. I was set to make my first move as a working adult, even though I was still not happy about the inheritance issue. That's when I had my first failure in life. My initial choice of employer was a well-known advertising agency. There were a lot of wealthy kids like myself when I joined. I, the person who was always the center of attention, was swiftly forgotten. The strange feeling of not being the center of attention unsettled me. I started to feel more and more nervous that I would not be able to control the scenario the way I had imagined. My natural haughtiness got in the way, and I disregarded the advice of my colleagues, making a grave error. Less than half a year passed before I made a fatal error. "I can handle everything on my own," I reasoned. It was an error brought about by my conceited notion. I just stared blankly as my boss apologizing to clients and my coworkers frantically covering for me. That was when I was shattered. The following day, I turned in my resignation. I never returned to work. I no longer wanted to socialize or meet new people who were aware of my existence. My anxious parents made arrangements for me to live in an apartment separately from our family house. I was evicted from my home and sought safety in an apartment that was made available to me. I started going outside after half a year, but I wasn't in the mood to look for a work. I had no job. I made it a daily goal to live a lazy life. I made the decision to live a life that totally rejected the person I used to be. I lived like this for a couple of years. I'd attribute my ability to reintegrate into society to a string of fortuitous little incidents. Movies were my only source of enjoyment throughout this period. My apartment was close to an art house movie theater. They screened foreign films, including some relatively obscure ones. At the conclusion of the year, they also screened all-night films in this little theater. It was a fine art house theater with strong ties to the neighborhood. One day, while purchasing a ticket as normal, I noticed an employment poster at the front desk. "Are you hiring staff?" As soon as I had my ticket, I inquired. I was informed that they had an unexpected vacancy and were hiring immediately. I was unaware of the kind of work that art house cinemas did at the time. When they said, "If you like movies, it's a fun job," I became interested right away. Applying for the job was my decision. My resume was brought the following day. I spoke with the manager of the theater right away, and I was hired right away. I remember being a little afraid, but everything went so well. In case it turned out to be a really severe firm, I was concerned about what to do. The day after the interview was when I was supposed to start work when I got back to my apartment. I was apprehensive about the nature of the work. It appeared like my job was just sales and publicity on the first day. Creating leaflets and posters, as well as displays within the theater and outdoors, were all part of the publicity activity. Sales comprised buying and promoting the movies that were going to be exhibited. Each member of the small crew was responsible for several responsibilities. "Hello, this is Michael Collins." I lowered my head and said "nice to meet you" to my supervisor, a girl who had a doll-like appearance. She actually did look like a small girl, yet I suppose I should label her a woman still. Her age, she was 5 years younger than me, surprised me once more. The manager of the movie theater confided in me that she was a part-time employee and had dropped out of high school. She appeared to have started working here after being asked whether she would like to work full-time after working many part-time jobs. After then, her efforts were reported to be enormous. They added that all the movies she bought were hits and that she had good taste at first. She is now a well-known great buyer in the business. My training was under her and the cinema manager's supervision. I obtained a younger boss in this way. With a younger girl as my employer, a week flew by. During that time, I soon learned about her powers. My acquired talents from my time as a student were useless. Every day, I would mentally torture myself over my incapacity. The manager of the movie theater advised, "Take your time to learn." However, I was proud to be an older guy and a man. My zeal ultimately turned into a wheel that invited failure. Her nickname for me was Junker each time it occurred. Junker quickly became my alias. I understood she was referring to me in a loving manner, so it wasn't sarcasm. However, being referred to as a Junker was also an embarrassment to me because I had been succeeding handily. "One day, I'll exact my revenge," I said to myself. This sensation would encourage my next error. Claire, my supervisor, is a doll-like beauty. Her white complexion and petite stature give her a delicate overall appearance. But over the past week, I've come to understand her strong inner nature all too well. In general, everyone at this place of employment is very eccentric. Frequently, the discussions held here border on sarcasm. I honestly believed at first that I had chosen the wrong job. But after I'd watched everyone for a bit, I became aware of how foolish my assumptions had been. Everyone is genuinely dedicated to their profession, and what may sting like hurtful jokes isn't meant to be taken that way. Arguments may arise as a result, but they will only last so long. No one participates in conversations that flatly contradict the views of others. They listened to my views even as a novice and offered suggestions with a hint of humor. In an environment where there's no need to put on a front of being well-versed in everything, employees seem to grow at a different rate. "Michael, had you finished ordering the flyers?" Claire gave me directions the moment she got back from the client meeting. "Everything is well. The submission has been completed." Claire responded, "Not bad, for a Junker," and set a gift on my desk, a convenience store cafe latte. She must have recalled that I only ever drink this while we're on a call outside. There were voices of discontent from the other desks. "Why don't we get anything?" "Stop acting like a baby. Proceed to purchase it on your own." Claire is tenacious even when everyone else is older. She is practically the most powerful person here because she is just as severe with the theater manager. The theater manager laughs it off, adding, "That's just how it is with newbies, even though I feel a little privileged. I can't let people younger than me spoil me all the time." I made a promise to myself as I sipped my cafe coffee. One aspect of my work is sales. Claire was with me when I had an outside sales job one day. I was a little anxious because this was my first time going out with Claire, even though I had gone out a few times with the theater manager. We went to a few ticket offices and bookstores so that I could get used to traveling alone in the future. The weather was pleasant, and it had been sunny since the morning, but after we had visited approximately 5 locations, the sky began to go darker. It could pour. She inquired, "Do you have an umbrella?" "I don't usually carry one." Claire threw a worried glance up at the cloudy sky. It dawned on me that I had never seen her hold an umbrella. Just as I was going to inquire as to why she hadn't, a torrential downpour struck, an unexpected deluge. We were unable to take action in the matter. We were caught in the midst of a crosswalk and had to run. We were saturated even though we were able to hide from the rain under a store awning. We were drenched from head to toe in a matter of seconds. Claire made a frustrated clicking sound with her tongue. She removed her damp hair with a napkin, wearing an annoyed expression. The rain appeared to have somewhat smudged her makeup. She kicked my leg angrily and exclaimed, "This sucks." "I'm not the one who made it rain, you know," I said. There was unease in my gaze as I glanced down at Claire. Her face had a distinct quality to it. I believe her makeup was smeared, but something wasn't quite right. Upon thorough observation, I discovered the source of the discomfort. "Ugh, Claire, did you have beauty marks under your eye?" Usually, she needs to cover them up with concealer or foundation. Her left eye had 3 lines of beauty marks. I got a slight thrill, like though I had just uncovered a secret about Miller. "Want to see more?" As she glanced up at me and spoke, my heart skipped a beat. It was quite seductive. These suddenly visible beauty marks had me completely enamored. I know full well that I always had a fascination for beauty marks. I involuntarily leaned in closer to Claire and gave her a downward glance. "Would you like to visit my home? This is not far from it." Claire's face flushed crimson red at what I said. I also began to experience some embarrassment. I'd attempted to defuse the situation, but before I could speak, I was quickly kicked in the shin. "Sorry. Hey, why did you do that? Cease talking. What a younker you are." Claire spat out these furious words, "Stop talking nonsense," and hurried off, leaving me crouched in misery. She would be drenched when she arrived home because the rain hadn't stopped. I'm hoping she avoids getting a cold. I became concerned. Claire had evidently gone straight home and wasn't back at the office the next morning when I returned to the movie theater. Claire had a somewhat icy attitude. She was consciously staying away from me. Her welcomes were a little forced, and she refused to look at me. She delegated duties to other seniors even when I attempted to talk about it. I was being methodically barred from her domain. I was being questioned by other staff members. "Hey, what did you do to her?" Things became awkward as a result. I managed to catch up with Claire during the lunch break, but she refused to acknowledge me. I approached Claire in a corridor nook, hidden from other employees' view. "Why are you avoiding me?" "I'm not trying to avoid you." She stared up at me. "You're just imagining things, younker," and I couldn't help but think back to what had transpired the day before. The 3 hidden beauty marks resurfaced when I gave Claire's left eye a gentle thumb massage. Unaffected by my touch, she gave me a sneer in return. My recollection began to reel backwards. These beauty marks were not new to me. This occurred during my time as a college student. I was conceited and unlikable then. I believed I was infallible and couldn't fathom failing. My social club and my studies felt like fun, and I wasted a lot of time there. Our club frequently went to this bar, which was decorated in the Italian style and was quite posh, ideal for courting women. We were using a mixer that day. 4 girls and 3 friends. I believe the majority of the girls showed interest in me. When my friend saw it, he became irritated. I believe he would be better off improving himself if he was going to become irritated, but he didn't seem to be that kind of person. To make matters worse, he began flirting with the young waiter who carried our lunch. The girl, who appeared to be in her high school years, was obviously uncomfortable and blushing. She had multiple piercings and pixie-cut hair that had been dyed silver. Because of the way she looked, I assumed that she could be a little rebellious. I thought she could resist the flirting, but I quickly learned that looks can be deceiving. She was unable to correct the customer too severely because she was truly upset. It didn't seem like she had the experience needed to handle things well. Seeing this, I gave the doll-like beauty sitting next to me a little signal with my eyes to hold on for a while. I had been trying to win her over. Hey, that's enough. You see she's upset, don't you? My companion was leaning toward the waitress when I reached out and grabbed him by the collar. I was able to instruct the waitress to go ahead and leave while he was thrashing around. You've gone too far, dude. I laughed and diffused the tension by giving my pal a shoulder pat. I saw the waitress bowing to me repeatedly from behind the counter. 3 little moles were visible beneath her eyes. Yes, it is correct. I remember now. Wait, the waitress from that Italian bar. Claire snapped her tongue sharply at my cry. Before I graduated, I had gone to that bar a lot. I must have seen that expression innumerable times. Aren't you going to marry that doll-like girl? Claire asked without warning. She must be referring to my college girlfriend, who had a striking resemblance to Claire. As I gave it some thinking, I had the epiphany. It's unbelievable. Claire, I may be misinterpreting, but is that costume a cosplay? I moaned as soon as I felt a stinging pain in my chin. Claire had given me a headbutt that had struck my chin. The pain made me crouch on the spot, and Claire stood triumphantly above me. Select your words wisely, young lady, she brashly exclaimed, glancing down at me and clicking her tongue as she turned to leave. It sounded to me like someone said, "Thanks for back then." Cinema manager, I have something to ask you. I yelled as I stormed into the movie theater manager's office. The manager of the movie theater smiled and remarked, "Oh, you know now." He told me that the reason he hired me was because Claire asked him to. It seems that she begged him to hire me since, although I had assisted her in the past as her first love, I was now unemployed and having difficulties. It seems like they coordinated the employment advertisements with my ticket purchase. Every employee at this art house cinema has performed a role in me. Claire tried to dress like the girl I was dating at the time since she recalled me. She clarified that while it wasn't quite cosplay, it was close. The manager of the movie theater chuckled as he informed me that Claire had promised them all to keep her appearance alteration and everything else a secret. Claire had done all the organizing. How twisted, and yet, I felt, how charming she was. Claire had returned to the girl I knew the day after. Her black hair appears to have been a wig. If she'd shown up looking like this for our reunion, slim black leggings, a white t-shirt, and a very short haircut with plenty of piercings, I would have known it was Claire. Claire pretended as if nothing had happened, totally back to her previous self. While she was eating a croissant at her desk over lunch, I questioned her softly. "So, I heard I was your first love. Have you ever found me attractive?" Claire clicked her tongue and shot me a cold look. She then averted her gaze and declared, "I hate you now." Her less than sweet remark took me by surprise, and I found myself saying, "What?" Then Claire turned to face me, a naughty smirk on her face. "You're a real yunker, you know." Her lips turned a little crimson. "Well, I suppose I had better stop being a yunker before then. After I do, will you kindly reconsider?" I was petting Claire's head when I felt a headbutt strike my side. I stayed stooped, groaning, and contorted in agony. As she left the office, she added, "You're so cheeky for a yunker," before turning around. "I guess I can wait, though." She added some words in a tiny voice, but I didn't miss them. It seemed so far off that day she would be standing next to me in a wedding gown. So, what were your thoughts? Having a channel subscription inspires me to produce more stuff. I'll see you in the upcoming video.